Hello there, good evening. This is Starr today here on Starr FM. I am Tutuwaa Danso. Coming up. Coming up in the broadcast this evening, embattled Chief Executive Officer of Defunct Men's Gold Ghana Limited, Nana Pia Mensah, also known as Nam1, hints of appealing to court the decision to dismiss his submission of no case after the court ordered him and his two companies to open their defense and answer to charges in the Men's Gold case.
A chunk of it has been dismissed, which is fine. We disagree. We very much disagree. I would speak with the defense legal team, and then we would consider and then explore all necessary rights to redress under the parameters of rule of law.
Also in this broadcast, Chamber of Cement Manufacturers Ghana describes legislative instruments seeking to regulate cement prices reporting as unconstitutional, adding government cannot implement the controversial LI when passed.
We've sought legal opinions. We've dealt with legal gurus, which have made it to see that the LI, which has been laid in Parliament and counting days for it to be passed, is unconstitutional.
The manufacturers have also dismissed assertions by the Trades Minister that they boycotted a stakeholders meeting before laying the controversial LI.
When the minister came, they were invited into a room, the conference room, and I can imagine the picture, just like you are here, straight to face the camera. Minister, is that why you call us? This is really a press conference. There was no agenda, there was no direction as to how the meeting was going to take off. And as a press conference, they need to be prepared.
And later, Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa, Professor Kakari, bemoans the silence by President Akufo-Addo on various attacks by journalists in their works.
But the murder of journalists because of their work has not been part of this cruel experience. Only in the Fourth Republic, and extremely ironically, under the government of President Akufo-Addo, the one president who had been the most vocal advocate of the rule of law, human rights and press freedom.
Later in this broadcast, Ghana Police Service apologizes to family of late Lois Abena Kranteng following family's dissatisfaction with police engagement on the matter. We'll be hearing from the family and a security analyst shortly.
Star News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Cool 103.5 FM in Ho, Rage and Might FM in Tamale, Sonali FM in Wa, My Star Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Star 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Star 103.5 FM.
Thank you for choosing us this evening. Now, the embattled Chief Executive Officer of Defunct Men's Gold Ghana Limited, Nana Pia Mensah, popularly known as Nam1, has hinted of appealing the court's decision to dismiss his submission of no case after the court ordered him and his two companies to open their defense and answer to charges in the Men's Gold case. Well, the court ruled that the prosecution, through its 9 witnesses, have been able to establish prima facie evidence against them in 35 out of the 39 counts. Justice Ernest Owusu-Adapa, while analyzing the 39 counts one after one, the others found as a fact that the courts will need to hear from the accused. Ruling on the submission of no case to answer to whether Nam1 has a case to answer, the court said it appears that the accused Nam1 did not possess a valid license to engage in the sale of the purchase of gold. EIB Network Legal Affairs correspondent Mutala Inusa joins me for transpired in the case today in court. Musala, thank you so much for your time this evening. Great. So what exactly happened in court today?
Great. So we do know that prosecution initially wanted to call 11 witnesses to prove their case. They reduced the number to 9. So upon the conclusion of their case, the court will have to determine whether or not there's a case for Namwan to answer. And in fact, his lawyers made that clear that they are filing a submission of no case, for which reason the court obliged them the opportunity and the prosecution to file their written submissions and all that for the court to make a determination of same. And then the court, upon hearing submission or oral submission from the parties, fixed yesterday initially to deliver the ruling on that, but it didn't happen. So today, Justice Ernest Owusu-Dapaah, initially the case was fixed for 10:30, but it was eventually called at 11:22. And 11:22, Justice Ernest Owusu-Dapaah, who is a justice of the Court of Appeal, sitting as an additional High Court judge, indicated that the ruling is 110 pages, and he was going to read virtually everything on that particular the pages, as it were, for everybody to understand. Then he took the counts one after the other. There were 39 of them. The first count is selling gold without license. The court said, yes, it was clear based on witnesses who came to the court, based on documents that were submitted to the court, that, of course, Namwan and Brew Marketing Consorts were selling gold. And everything points to the fact that once they were selling gold and they have issues about whether they have license or not, it means that the court will want to hear explanation from their side based on what is before the court. So the court found as a fact that prosecution was able to prove that there is a prima facie evidence for them to answer. Then the court went to count 2, which is operating deposit-taking business without license. That, of course, the court also said that everything appears to the court that it is the Bank of Ghana that is supposed to endorse situations like that. But it appears that Namwan and his company did not have that particular endorsement from the Bank of Ghana. And so there is an explanation that the court will need from them, for which reason the court held that prosecution has been able to make a prima facie evidence based on the witnesses for Namwan to offer explanations to that. Then the issue of inducement to invest. One of the case issues that the prosecution indicated was that when Namwan knew that they didn't have license to operate gold, selling gold and other stuff, they used celebrities, influential people. The name of Stonebwoy was mentioned, Jackie Appiah was mentioned, Becca was mentioned, Joycelyn Dumas was mentioned. So they use these people to influence or to induce the public to invest. The court was of the considered view that if you look at the posters, if you look at the advert that were run, they were so beautiful. So there was no doubt that the public got the influence. The public were induced to go to Men's Gold when they knew that they didn't have license. So the court said, based on information available to the court, number one, it is clear that there's an issue regarding inducement that Namwan and his companies ought to explain to the court.
But Musala, this inducement charge placed on Namwan doesn't seek to find any of the celebrities involved, does it?
Absolutely. The celebrities are not...
They were completely ignorant. Is that what the court established?
The court has... It will depend on the kind of explanation that Namwan will offer when he mounts the witness of why he decided to use the celebrities. Now, what is clear, and the court is saying, is that it is clear that based on that art that they use, using influential people, the public got involved. The public got convinced
without
that
the necessary license from the Bank of Ghana.
Absolutely, they got convinced that when you have people like Jackie Appiah, people like Joycelyn Dumas, Stonebwoy, that people can relate to, then of course it's a legitimate business. So the court wants some explanation from them in relation to this very charge. Then there were 22 counts of defrauding by false pretenses, and the reason it is 22 is that there are different individuals involved, 22 different people. So he allegedly defrauded all these 22 different. So that is how come you see 22 counts of defrauding by false pretenses. However, 3 of them did not show up. So prosecution abandoned that. Okay. And so Namwan was acquitted and discharged on those
3 counts.
3 counts.
Okay.
So he reduced the number from 22 counts of defrauding by false pretense to 19. So that 19, or those 19 counts, Justice Ernest Owusu-Dapaah is saying that Namwan will have to offer explanation to why they are accusing him of defrauding by false pretenses. Then there were 7 counts of fraudulent breach of trust. The court said Namwan and his companies will need to explain to the court how they managed to get certain things done when the prosecution is also claiming otherwise. Then money laundering, another 7 counts of money laundering. So if you put all these counts together, you're having 36 counts.
36 counts.
36 counts out of the 39. Initially were 39, but he was acquitted and discharged
because
on 3
of the 3 persons that were
Absolutely.
absent.
So now the counts have reduced to 36. So out of the 36, but these are the main charges: selling good without license, operating deposit business, taking business without license, inducement to invest, and then 22 now, instead of 22 count of defrauding by, it's now 19 count of defrauding by false pretenses, fraudulent breach of trust, 7 of them, and then money laundering.
But I mean, so what happens to the 3 that didn't show up in court today? Do they have the chance to in any way appeal or get the prosecution to file a case on their behalf?
So it is a case of the prosecution that I'm bringing this number of people. These are the number of counts that I'm bringing. Along the line, they realized that they could not produce those people. Those people were not ready to avail themselves. So there's nothing prosecution could do than to abandon them. So they have informed the court during the submission of no case, during the written submissions, that instead of 39, we are reducing it. We are now forming our conclusion and our case on the 36 that are willing to come to court, to come and testify, to come and speak to this very case that we have. So the 3 are out. There's nothing in relation. It is their case. They decide they don't want to come to court and all that. So what is clear now is that Namwan now knows his fate, that he has to offer explanation in relation to that. So the submission of no case was subsequently or eventually dismissed, with the court ordering him and his companies to mount a witness box and offer explanation to all these charges that have been preferred against him. But of course, for the first time after the court sitting, Namwan spoke.
I was going to ask
you
that. What was his demeanor? Because this sounds like a lot.
I remember
36 counts.
In the afternoon when I was reporting, somebody was just standing by. So I'm making a description of how the courtroom was looking like and all that. And somebody said, Namwan is wearing a white shirt. Have you seen him? I said, oh, I'm here to see Namwan. Of course, Namwan was in white shirt. What is the significance
of wearing the white
so
shirt?
you know the significance of white. It symbolizes victory.
Yeah.
So Namwan probably was anticipating that coming to court today, he was going to walk free. But unfortunately, that did not happen. But he's saying that he's going to consult his lawyers and all that, and they are going to explore the available options, and if we're including appealing against the decision of the court to open this. Let's hear from Namwan himself.
A chunk of it has been dismissed, which is fine. We disagree. We very much disagree. But it is worthy of note that the disagreement does not in any way erode our confidence in the judiciary and in the courts. Yeah, so I would speak with the defense legal team, and then we would consider and then explore all necessary rights to redress, under the parameters of rule of law. So, it's a win for Ghana. It's a win for rule of law. We have always maintained that we are not guilty, and we still stand by that. And listening to the lengthy ruling, certain keywords were very essential, and they were like consistent. So for example, there were words like presumption, we presume, it appears, it looks like, it seems. What that tells me is that it's just like viewing it from on the face value, right, and not necessarily going into the fact of the matter. So I wouldn't also want to go into the merit or the demerit of the matter, because this is just the prima facie, which is like looking at it on the face value. So, well, it could be a mirage, and this is just one, person sitting down looking at it. So, yeah, once we disagree, the law permits that we can always take it to, an appellate court or the legal remedies under, a legal dispensation can be exercised. And so we would go back to the drawing table, in an attempt to defend ourselves, and then to affirm and then get a court to proclaim our innocence to the whole world. We would explore all the legal remedies, under, the law. This afford's absolutely. That's why I said, we think that it is not like, I read in a section of the media that says that we are afraid to open. No, nobody's afraid. From 6 years, 7 years, we have been here. All right, we have subjected ourselves as law-abiding citizens to, the what the law says, all through from the circuit court now to the high court. So yes, but of course, the law permits us to exhaust, certain our right of redress, and it is for us to waive that right or, exercise it. So yeah, we'll go. I cannot, decisively stand here and then say that we are going to do that, but I have to speak to my lawyers, and then we can come to that conclusion or otherwise.
So I presume that the
charges that has been labeled, but as it stands right now, we are not guilty.
All right.
And I mean, that is instructive and very commanding. And very painfully challenging. But of course, we leave that to what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And I'm a believer, whatever God doesn't permit doesn't happen. So it's fine. It's very fine. I'm not a person that complains. Anybody who knows me will tell you, I don't believe in complaints, right? I embrace whatever comes to me. I hold a challenge and I try to make the most out of it. So that's precisely what we're going to do.
Before you go,
in terms of payment, we are very happy. We've been constrained. Every company has liabilities. I mean, companies lose money all the time, right? So it breaks our heart that people have had to suffer these unintended consequences. It breaks our heart, right? But we are before a criminal court. And if you know what the criminal court establishment is about, it is not a remedial court. It is a punitive court, a punitive and by extension a reformative court, right? So you come before a criminal court, you're not here to remedial, you're not here to remedy a situation by way of coming to pay debt. You are here, it is you against the state. So if they find you culpable, a punishment or a punitive sanction is imposed. So we are very happy. We want to exhaust this. Once we, by the grace of God and our firm belief in God Almighty, once we're able to exhaust this, then I believe we can the state may decide to go to the civil court, and at that point we'll be happy to make the necessary payment, discharge our payment obligations to our customers. I pretty much do, but I mean, one thing has to lead to the other. We need to take off this albatross of criminal liability off our back, and then we can look at it from a civil realm. Then when we go to the civil realm, it's between us and then those we transacted with, that we can negotiate, all right, and find a middle ground, and then do the necessary payment and we leave. Because before the criminal court, if you are making payment, as you guys all will recall, we started making some payment to the Ghana Police Service, right? We needed them. We didn't make the payment to them, but we needed them to aid us, give us security to be able to make the payment. But that effort has been thwarted by this criminal, proceeding or prosecutions. Because before the criminal, when you are before a criminal, proceeding, if you are making payment, what are you making the payment to? Is it to mitigate the punishment that will be meted against you if you are found culpable? Is it to stop the prosecution? What is it for? Yeah, so we cannot make payment before a criminal court, right?
Well, that was Namwande expressing some optimism, as Mutala earlier indicated that he was in a white shirt, hoping to emerge victorious at the end of it all. But Mutala, I believe you spoke to state prosecutors. What have they been telling you?
Absolutely. So what Namwande is saying that what doesn't break you makes you stronger, and it's looking for the opportunity to have a civil version of the case. And one thing that I must put on record is that the fact that Namwande is going through this criminal prosecution doesn't mean that the outcome of this very case will put men's good customers' money back to them. This is to find out that whether Namwande has flouted the rules of Ghana or the criminal proceedings. And if they want to get their money, that is where he's talking about civil action. So prosecution will have to initiate the civil. But of course, we'll be speaking to the spokesperson of the Attorney General, Isaac Wilberforce-Mensah, and let's hear what he's been saying in relation to prosecution being able to prove their case for the court to call upon Namwande to open his defense.
Establish a prima facie case. That means that you need to prove to a good extent, some of all the elements of the offense to which the accused person would be called to answer. So if prosecution had failed in this duty, then apparently, or as the law demands, the judge would have let the accused person or accused persons walk away. So it's very important. This stage of a trial, the submission of no case part of the trial, is extremely, extremely crucial. If you get this wrong at this stage, the accused persons would have walked. And the victims, the numerous victims you see behind us, it would have been a different story. So we are very glad the hard work and toil of the men and women of the prosecution's division of the Office of the Attorney General have indeed proved that what the French say, la loi n'aime pas le bruit, which means the law does not like noise. So it's been years, and we know when it comes to crime, there's no statute of limitation in respect of crime. This issue indeed has been in court. I've been reliably informed by one of you that since July 12th, so it was an exact date, July 12, 2019. This even predates when I joined the Office of the Attorney General. So it shows how long this matter has been in court. So we are glad that we have gotten to the stage of submission of no case and the accused persons have been asked to open their defense. So this is victory for the prosecution. It's a step towards justice delivery in this particular matter. And I'm glad and I believe the gentlemen who are indeed at this stage can properly be called victims. I believe they're all satisfied and very elated and happy by the ruling given by the honorable judge today.
We know that you have 39 counts, but somehow along the line, you drop some of the counts. Why, and which are these counts?
Yes, so these counts relate to defrauding by false pretenses. And we did not drop these counts because we do not feel that, or we feel that the accused person is not liable to such offenses. We dropped the counts because the victims did not show up in court, or they indicated to prosecution at a very late stage that they will not come to testify. However, the prosecution was very resolute. The prosecution did not flinch and decided that we are going to go on. We believe we still have a strong case. Even if we have one witness, we are good to go. The documentary evidence to us was overwhelming, was very, very good and solid. And the witnesses were very eager to testify. In fact, as was stated in court, there were thousands of witnesses or thousands of victims in this particular regard. However, the court, even at the early stage, most of you were there, the court at the early stage admonished us that you can't possibly bring over 1,000 people to court. So we selected a few and we made a strong case in respect of the few that we had. And same has been confirmed by the court.
Well, counsel, yeah.
So that's the spokesperson for the Attorney General, Isaac Wilberforce-Mensah.
And they are clearly hell-bent on bringing respite to the customers.
Absolutely.
But did you speak to them today?
Yes, so they were there in their numbers and all that. But let's hear from Frederick Forson, who is a PRO for the Agreements Good customers.
Time that we want to know where our money is, and the court asking him to open a defense will give an opportunity to the prosecution team to interrogate where those funds that today we had some substantial amount of money were transferred even from marketing accounts and men go to his personal accounts. We are also particularly happy about the issue of fraudulent breach of trust. As we kept on saying, those money that were transferred to xylophone accounts, which culminated in those celebrities enjoying from our sweat, we kept on asking them that they should do the needful by surrendering those properties that they acquired. And so it's all well and good. We are very happy. We are very grateful. It shows the depth of work that has been done by the Office of the Attorney General, led by the Director of Public Prosecution. And so like we said initially, we are extremely behind them. We believe in their case, and we have cooperated right from day one till now. We shall continue to cooperate with them. And so come 23rd July, we'll come to the court and look at the other arrangements. We will wish that we shall officially write to the Attorney General that the cross-examination should be telecast. It should be made live for everybody to listen to it, because the justice that we are seeking. I have been defrauded. I have been scammed. I do not want somebody else to go through the same process. So we think that it's important the whole nation watch it live so that the necessary lessons can be learned. If those of you who have been with us, and I'm sure all of you have been with us, ever since we fell into this trap, we have done everything possible to stop any other schemes that are presented as a scam to the general public when it comes to our attention. So we want to request that the cross-examination proceedings will be telecast live.
Well, that was Fred Forson there. But Musala, before I let you go, I know that the case involving the ambulance trial was called today. What happened?
Yeah, so that case also came before Justice Efia Saribotwe. Of course, the parties gathered, but unfortunately, the first accused person, Dr. Kasiela Tuforsin, had traveled, so he wasn't in court. He was expected to be in court, but the lawyers have informed the court circumstances leading to why he was absent. But Vanessa, Justice Efia Saribotwe has now sounded a caution, a very strong one indeed, to all the parties involved, including the accused person, specifically Richard Jakpa. You notice that for some time now, after the court sitting, there has been some interview section with Mr. Jakpa especially and all that. In fact, he also managed to appear on an interview discussion. Justice Efia Saribotwe is saying that they have all crossed the red line, and so for the last time, the court is warning that nobody involved in this case should open his or her mouth to utter a comment or grant any interview
so
in relation to that.
Neither the political parties, the person
Absolutely.
standing trial.
All the parties involved in this case, the court said that nobody should comment. So that is the warning from Justice Efia Saribotwe. So the media can report, but you also make sure that you don't scandalize the court. So what is clear from today's sitting is that Justice Efia Saribotwe has hit the rod and said that anybody, be it the accused persons, the lawyers, who will make a pronouncement, a comment in relation to this very case, the court will not sit down and watch that unconcerned.
Right.
But lawyers of the second accused person, he wants the first witness to be in court. The witness was not in court today. And then they are also, by way of a subpoena, want the Speaker of Parliament, Aban Babin. At the point in time, it was Aban Babin who was the health minister. They want him in court. They want Alex Segbefia to also come to court. And then there was some other persons who are related by way of subpoena to come on that. So this case, today, very interesting conversation and all that, even though the witness for Mr. Jakpa did not come. But what is clear is that Justice Efia Saribotwe said nobody, no party in this case should offer an interview.
Is it because she thinks that it constitutes contempt of court?
Absolutely. What the court is saying is that if you listen to the comments, that most of them prejudice the matter before the court, and the court, as a court of competent jurisdiction, will not sit down for that to happen. So the court is saying that anybody who cross the line, anybody who will not even go and grant interview and grant, the court is saying that nobody, if you are party in the case, nobody should grant an interview until the final determination of this very matter.
I think this was expected. Thank you so much, Mutala. He's our legal affairs correspondent. Away from the judiciary, let's head to Parliament, where the National Pensions Regulatory Authority has given SSNIT clearance for the sale of 60% of its stake in 4 hotels to Rock City Hotel. This was revealed by the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafo-Iwa, in Parliament. The NPRA had directed SSNIT to suspend its negotiations with Rock City over the sale of evaluation of 4 hotels, pending further evaluation and engagement. Answering questions on the floor of Parliament, the sector minister confirmed that all due processes have been complied with.
NPRA came up with a directive, but I will appreciate if my brother, my colleague, really read the directive from NPRA. It said it needed to be furnished with all information relating to the sale of the hotels, which SSNIT has since done that. So it wasn't like a direct decision that SSNIT should not go ahead to do anything, but then SSNIT can only go ahead when NPRA, which is the regulator within the field, had actually certified that they had seen all the documentation and the processes, and they think that they are good to go. Well,
Honorable, please conclude your answer.
Yes. So, as a minister, I can tell you on authority that NPRA has since indicated that they had seen the processes and they think that SSNIT can go ahead.
Ignatius Bafo-Iwa. Let's go over the phone lines and engage our parliamentary affairs correspondent, Ibrahim Alassan. Ibi, thank you for your time this evening. We understand that NPRA has finally given SSNIT the green light to sell 60% stake of its hotels. Tell us more about this.
Well, so a couple of days ago, news broke that the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, NPRA, is a state agency that has the responsibility of safeguarding the pension funds of Ghanaian workers. It had written to management of SNIT that it should halt any transaction that will result in the sale of a 60% stake in the 4 hotels to Rock City. Of course, this particular transaction has become very controversial, with Member of Parliament for Northton, Samuel Okudzeto launching a crusade to ensure that the deal is halted altogether. It culminated into a demonstration that he led a couple of weeks ago. Now, he then followed up with a question, an urgent question in Parliament. Usually there's a tool available to members of Parliament to get sector ministers to be summoned to answer one question or the other. So the other person was filed in the name of Samuel Okudzeto to invite the Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, who has supervisory rule over SNIT and then NPRA, to come and answer questions about the transaction in general. And so today, Samuel Okudzeto is absent. He's far away in Russia, in the company of John Dramani Mahama, who is in Russia to transact some business. In fact, he's relaunching his book, My First Coup d'Etat, written in the Russian language. And so Okudzeto was not available. But the question was asked on his behalf by Minority Chief Whip Gavin Kwame Agbodza. The answer given, of course, you can say the minister was a little evasive with the answers. And then Member of Parliament for Keta then sought to find out that days ago, NPRA had written a letter directing SNIT to halt the transaction. What is the update? And then Ignatius Bafwa then says that, yes, the NPRA had concerns about due process, the fact that it was not consulted. But after further digging and engagement, those concerns have been addressed. So as he spoke on the floor of Parliament, that particular directive that the transaction must be halted by SNIT has been rescinded, and that the NPRA has given SNIT the go-ahead to sell a 60% stake in these 4 hotels. So that's exactly what happened today in Parliament.
Right, Ivy, this is Vanessa, by the way, but I know that you say Okudzeto is absent. He's not in the country at the moment, but did you speak to any member of the minority?
Well, so the minority members who were present, especially on the floor of Parliament, expressed surprise at this kind of event. In fact, they are wondering what is it that has happened within the space of, say, 2 weeks or 1 week for the NPRA to rescind its earlier directive that the deal must be halted. How convincing was the argument of management of SNIT to the extent that in a matter of days, the management of NPRA has done a 360 U-turn to say that go ahead. But of course, the explanation from the minister is a simple one. The NPRA had concerns relative to due process. Those concerns have now been addressed. And the NPRA has no reason to hold on to its directive for the deal to be halted or for the transaction to be halted. And that is why now that directive has been withdrawn. So SNIT will have the green light to decide. Mind you, this is not a directive that SNIT to go ahead and sell a stake to Rock City. NPRA is saying that it has no reason to give a directive to the contrary. It has no reason to cause for the halting of this transaction. But as to whether the transaction goes ahead or not still rests with the management of SNIT. But of course, if what we have read from management of SNIT, from the board chair to the executive, the director general of SNIT is anything to go by, then we can be rest assured that this deal is going through.
Ibrahim Alassan, thank you so much for those updates there. My colleague Ibrahim Alassan giving us updates on the NPRA's directive to give green light to SNIT to sell its 4 hotels to Rock City Hotel.
Starr Today. First, fast, and credible.
You're still listening to Starr today on Starr FM. Away from that, the Chamber of Cement Manufacturers Ghana have described legislative instruments seeking to regulate cement prices reporting as unconstitutional, adding the government cannot implement the controversial LI when passed. Well, the Minister for Trades and Industry, Katie Hammond, last week said laid the legislative instrument in Parliament. Despite concerns raised by sector players, Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, advised the sector minister to withdraw the LI in order to address the concerns which could lead to the defeat of the legislation at the court, since Parents Acts are against price control. Now, speaking at a stakeholder forum by the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry, Executive Secretary of the Cement Manufacturers Association, Bishop George Dawson Amwa, said, upon further deliberations with the stakeholders and reference to Parents Act of 2022, Act 1078, the LI is unconstitutional.
In establishing an LI, it has to be hinged on a parent, act. And this very particular LI, it is hinging on the Parent Act of the Ghana Standards Authority, 2022, that is 1078, Section 80, which amazingly is referring to sales advertising. That is what it's being referred to. And sales advertising is not pricing. So how do you actually hinge this LI on this Section 80 of the Parent Act of 2022, 1078? And that makes it very, amazing and unconstitutional as it is, as a matter of fact. So if we actually come out to actually more or less say and condemn this act, it is based on the factual, that is, concerns. We've sought legal opinions. We've dealt with legal gurus, which have made it to see that the LI, which has been laid in Parliament and counting days for it to be passed, is unconstitutional, because the basis of reference in the Parent Act of 2022-1078. Interestingly, when you look at the procedures in Parliament with regards to the laying of the LI, our hands are actually tight, because looking at the practice in Parliament, it is like you can actually, give a grievance or a petition before the LI is laid. And that's unfortunately what we are lamenting seriously of being denied. We never had any stakeholder consultation meeting, absolutely nothing. No one can challenge that. It is the truth. I have been the chairman or the CEO of the chamber all these years. We know the interaction that we have, the relationship that we've built with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and never did we ever have the opportunity to discuss the LI, that is legislative instrument, on pricing. And we are talking about the major stakeholders. And when you're talking about cement pricing, the major stakeholders that you can count on in Ghana are the manufacturers. They produce the cement. Without the manufacturers, you can't get cement. So why do you talk about something relating with cement without the major stakeholders? Yes, of what you call a committee. And even that committee, which is born out of a different LI, we have already challenged where they even had the chance even to discuss the legislative instrument on pricing. Yeah, please let me emphasize that we are not saying that we've never had any discussions or any meetings with the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We've had several meetings with them. But the issue here, let's narrow it down to the point that there has not been any discussion whatsoever in respect of this particular LI, emphasis on this LI, on pricing.
The manufacturers have also dismissed assertions by the Trades Minister that they boycotted a stakeholders meeting ahead of the laying of the controversial LI.
No, we should be careful in selecting my words, but it comes as a big surprise. It came as a WhatsApp message, and all along, discussion on this matter has been evolved around the Chamber of Cement Manufacturers. So it is like, it's the chamber, or as it were, the association that coordinates all the 14 independent companies, cement companies. In the first place, the invitation to meet the minister was without the chamber. The chamber was not invited. The invitation was on WhatsApp, which was sent to individual managing directors of the various cement companies. As expatriates, they obliged. That is the issue. They went. When they got there, the minister was late for about 1 hour. When the minister came, they were invited into a room, the conference room, and I can imagine the picture, just like you are here, straight to face the camera. Minister, is that why you call us? This is really a press conference. There was no agenda. There was no direction as to how the meeting was going to take off. And as a press conference, they need to be prepared. Like what we've been experiencing during this stakeholder. Asking questions. Asking detailed questions. And this is exactly what media people will be inquiring. Asking detailed questions. And not having prior knowledge of such a press conference, they were not happy. And they declined. And again, you are dealing with expatriates. Now let's be very clear. These expatriates that you are dealing with, they are workers representing the real shareholders internationally. They don't speak by heart. They don't talk in public by heart. They consult. So to put an expatriate before a camera, and for that matter a press, if he is not prepared, he will not do it. But it's really against actually the procedures so far as expatriate this regime is concerned. So they were scared. And so it is absolutely untrue, absolutely incorrect that the minister invited the companies and they refused. The circumstances leading to that was what I have told you. And again, after the minister had more or less understood them, he took up the press conference himself or meeting the media, having assured them that after meeting the media, he will come back to them, only for them to be dismissed. So I say that they turned up for the meeting but refused to face the camera because there was no agenda and they were not prepared.
Well, Now, the Executive Secretary of the Cement Manufacturers Association, Bishop George Dawson Amwa, joins us for a conversation on more on this. Thank you so much, sir, for your time this evening. Unfortunately, our phone lines are misbehaving, but let's not stay further on this as the Chamber of Construction is demanding clarity on the legislative instruments. Emmanuel Cherry is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Construction.
It seems there is a letter deviation in there because they have a mandate and the mandate does not include cement pricing. So that is where the issues are. But listening to the producers, you realize that they themselves, they are more than ready to have the disclosure of the price build-up. But the approach, that's the methodology, as the chairman said earlier, is where the issues were. Because if there was a proper consultations as we started today, you see almost all the key stakeholders who matters are here, except we intentionally, deliberately omitted Ministry of Trade and the Ghana Standard Authority, because we want to take it one after the other. Listening to everybody, you realize that in fact, we are all at a loss. And we have an industry to protect. In as much as the government is trying to regulate the price or find a way to regulate the price within the market, we must also not forget that what are the bottlenecks? What are the challenges that is pinching these particular people as a result of this price fluctuation?
Let's now engage Emmanuel Cherry, who is Executive Secretary of the Construction Chief Executive Officer, I beg your pardon, of the Chamber of construction. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
The pleasure is mine.
Great. Now, what happened during your meeting with the stakeholders today?
Yeah. First of all, let me take this opportunity to thank you and then to salute your cherished listeners across the entire country. In short, today's engagement was for us to understand the issues, the underlying factors concerning the concerns raised by the cement manufacturers as against the position of the government through the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Because as key stakeholders in the construction industry, we have a stake in there. So anything happening affects us one way or the other. So we need to be very mindful so that we get closer to the discussions and the deliberations before us and then understand the ramifications and then get clarity and then they see exactly what is our position and our take in the matters arising. So that's the reasons why we engage today, and then the meeting has been very fruitful and helpful.
But in all of this, has the government engaged your association?
That is where the challenge was. We were expecting such things would have happened, but it did not. So government has not engaged us in any way concerning the late regulations as been seen today.
Now, I know that last week when this LI was laid in Parliament, it sought to not necessarily control pricing, but to report the pricing to Parliament. What exactly are your concerns with this LI?
You see, one thing is, let's be sincere. Ghana have a very fine laws, fine policies, documents, regulations, legislations, and what have you, but the implementations happens to be the challenge. All the ministry is trying to seek or to cure, maybe at the right, how do you call it, a good footnotes, but the approach, the methodology, that is what has caused the problem here as we speak. The issue before us here is, what are the capacity, do the committee in question has the capacity to be absorbing mentally reports from the manufacturers, from the dealers, and then the other entities in the construction cement sector? These are the questions we need to find out too. Various ministries, agencies, and departments are having challenges. Do the ministry have a budget line to support this? That's one aspect. So there are a lot of things. Even the regulation as we have to speak has certain sections that possibly we need interpretations and details, clarifications in that. Which, because you are not being consulted, all these things are being shrouded in secrecy. So there is a lot of discussions we need to have. So this is just the first phase. We'll be engaging the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ghana Standard Authority, and possibly Parliament to get certain clarities, because the Section 2, Clause C, we do. In fact, it's rather, we don't know exactly who is talking to. Is it us, or who exactly is at the entity in the cement, how do you call it, production, or in that sector? So we want to understand.
I mean, so is that to say that you saw the LI after it was laid in Parliament or before?
The LI, the initial, we got this particular discussions, and then with the at the hand side, we chanced on the earlier draft, regulation, and then sincerely speaking, it was in a bad case, and that was why the Chamber of Construction Industry came very hard on the minister. Thankfully, he picked it up, came and repolished it, but even in the polished state, still there are challenges that we are still having with that, which needed a better stakeholder engagement, a broader stakeholder engagement for us to at least engage and understand certain ramifications and then get clarity to ourselves. At the end of the day, we want to protect the interests of the construction industry, not to collapse it or not to overburden anybody, but at least to build consensus, and then collectively we move on as a country. That is what we are all trying to achieve. However, I stress very cautiously that we don't shortchange anybody, because if the cement industry collapse, our businesses will collapse. If we also collapse, their businesses will also collapse. So therefore, it's a hen and chicken issue. So the government, at the end of the day, instead of trying to protect everybody, you should tread cautiously so that the collective interest of everybody must be carried along. It shouldn't just be seen one side and then forgetting about the other side. That is our concern as Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry.
But have you made efforts to address or have the government to address your grievances? Have you reached out to them?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, today marks the beginning. So we now had the position of the manufacturers. They've laid their issues before us. And if you should understand them, if you should follow them carefully, you realize that as a business entity, they have a challenge, dipping their neck so deep into the economic challenge that we also face today. Because there are underlying factors. They're complaining about other factors, which largely lies in the bosom of government. So government has the share responsibility in there to take care of. Meanwhile, the government is paying blind eye to that particular quest, and they're trying to jump into conclusion. Meanwhile, the underlying factors have been neglected in terms of the foreign exchange. For instance, the forex, the CD to the dollar, CD to the pound, CD to the euro. How much is it? The depreciation 2 years ago, they've given us a projection to today. Now the increase of cement product 2 years ago, they've given us a breakdown. If you follow it, you realize that indeed the people are suffering. If you come back to freight, the same problem. Clearing, the same problem. Now, even at ports, because there is no space, if their cargoes come, what can happen is they don't have a space to dock so that they can clear their goods. So the cargo is forced to be at on the high sea for a number of days. And the demurrage, they said according to that, the demurrage cost is almost 20,000, 25,000 is it per day or what have you. So by the time they finish clearing, they have incurred another debt. All these things are some of the bottlenecks that government must look into, because if it's not being taken care of, no matter the regulation, they'll slap the final differentials on the final product. And then you and I are going to bear that brand. And therefore, the underlying factors must also be looked at, how do you call it, alongside.
I mean, from your concerns that you've raised, it is indicating, or it suggests that you think the government solution is one-sided. It looks like a section of the consuming chain. What do you think is the ultimate solution then?
The ultimate solution in there is government must engage further. Let us hear from government. Number one, what is the policy document that he's trying to use to regulate the construction value, the cement value chain? Number two, the construction industry, the materials we use is not only cement. Because as we speak, anytime at all price, the CD to the dollar CD depreciates, it factors across all the materials, including iron rod, roofing sheet, and what have you. All those things is because of the challenge in there. So you are not being able to address that issue. So our concern now is, in as much as you are trying to bring sanity, to bring transparency, the same way, try as much as possible to discipline yourself as well. What policies, measures are you putting in place to arrest the CD to the dollar, CD to the euro, CD to the pound, and then at the same time, the petroleum fluctuations, and then the interest rate at the market, the freight, as we speak, clinker. They are paying fumigation levy. How can you fumigate clinker? It's unheard of. As we speak now, there's a number of taxes that has been slapped on other goods on the same product. At the end of the day, they bring it to the finished product. So you and I will bear that. So these are some of the core that the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry will be calling government on very, very shortly. Because after this engagement, we would like to get closer to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ghana Standard Authority and Parliament, and then see exactly how we can deliberate among ourselves collectively, because the country is what we want to charge to a positive direction. So therefore, collective responsibility lies before us. All of us has our net dig into this. So therefore, government must rethink, come back, let's engage all the key stakeholders, including the chamber and then all the allied bodies. Let discuss and then find a possible way of how we can solve this problem once and for all. Without that, it will be very difficult. Even if we introduce the policy, the regulation today, any time at all, the dollar to the CD depreciates, definitely it will come against us. because today, as we speak, petroleum products, anytime at all the city depreciates, you see that they come with percentage increase. Anytime at all it depreciates, they come with percentage increase. The same applies. So the underlying factor must be taken care of.
Mr. Cherry, briefly before I let you go, would you describe this LI as an exercise in futility?
For now, yes. It doesn't have anything to kill. For now. Because if you pass it, no matter what. Today, are we not buying fuel? Are we not buying fuel? If you go to, for instance, oil, the price is it the same as to Shell? Is it the same as to Total? They are not. Even though there is a regulator there. You see, so in as much as to bring the regulations, we don't have a problem with it. But the problem here is let us tackle the underlying factor, which is even affecting the petroleum sector as a result of the price adjustment. Today, utility bills has been upwardly adjusted. Why? It's because of this international pressure. So those things cannot be taken care of by a prudent management of the economy and then proper water type policy. Then, to be honest, you are afraid. Anything you bring, it will be thrown overboard because it will not solve the problem until the economic indicators are being taken care of. So government, through cabinet, must come again. Let them meet and then other stakeholders and find a better way solving the forest issue, which is the challenge affecting the entire economy at large.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. Emmanuel Cherry is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Construction.
Starr today, first.
This is still Starr today on Starr 103.5 FM. Away from that, the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa, Professor Kwame Kakari, has bemoaned great silence by President Akufo-Addo on various attacks meted out by journalists in their line of duties, while the former lecturer and director of the School of Communication Studies of the University of Ghana believes these dangers must alert journalists to be more alert and resolute in protecting themselves. While speaking at the 75th Ghana Journalists Association anniversary public lecture in Ho, he urged President Akufo-Addo to expedite action on these inhumane attacks on journalists.
This 30-year-old Fourth Republic is also the period that has seen the most remarkable growth and expansion of media outlets and facilities since independence. Yet, this same period, which is marked by constitutional enhancement of freedoms, technological advances and expansive growth in media organizations, this same period presents some of the critical challenges to the future progress of the industry and profession. So let us take a look at some of these challenges. One, the state of press freedom. A look at developments in recent years. Shows a number of factors that threaten the freedom of the media and journalists' safety as professed in the Constitution. These dangers must alert the Ghana Journalists Association and allied media institutions to resolve to be more vigilant, better organized, and more resolute in protecting the media and journalists. And I'll give just a few examples. Now, in the darkest moments of attacks on press freedom in the country, journalists have been imprisoned without charge, trial, or due process. In those dark moments, a number have been forced into exile or hounded to stop publication of their newspapers. Some have been sacked from their jobs or been persecuted so much that they have had to leave the profession altogether. And talking about some who have been sacked, our elder here, who was, in my estimation, one of the most creative and brilliant editors we have had in newspaper journalism, was once sacked by a government that was supposed to be a liberal government because of his editorial opinions. There are many other journalists from this region who also suffered the same fate. A contemporary of Cameron, John Dumoga, was also sacked at some point, and there are others. From the colonial days until the first elected government under Rawlings in the 1990s, the courts too have railroaded a number to prison on charges of seditious or criminal libel or contempt. One journalist, also from this region, called Dompre, spent 8 years in prison, convicted under the offense of violating state secrets because he reported a story on cocoa, and he was arrested and imprisoned because at that time the government under the PNDC, thought it was state secrets.
Let's go over the phone lines and engage security analyst Adib Sani for more on this development. Adib, thank you so much for your time this evening. Unfortunately, we are unable to reach Adib at this time, but let's move on. As the Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Yao Lecha, urged the media to amplify marginalized voices and hold leaders accountable in the country.
This occasion is a testament to the dedication, perseverance, and passion of generations of journalists who have upheld the highest standards of this noble profession. As we honor our past, we should recognize the trailblazers who have shaped our industry. We pay tribute to their courage, their integrity, and commitment to the truth. We celebrate their achievements, their awards, and the impact of their work on communities and society, and by extension, the country at large. Madam Chairperson, as we embrace the present, we acknowledge the challenges of a rapidly changing media landscape. We must reaffirm our commitment to the fact-based reporting, investigative journalism, and storytelling that inspires and informs better through creative and innovative ways to get to almost all persons. As we shape the future, we must also embrace innovation, technology, and diversity. We must pledge all the more to amplify the marginalized voices, to hold power accountable, and to foster a more informed and engaged citizenry.
We now have security analyst Adib Sani over the phone line. Adib, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Great. In observing the GJA's 75th anniversary, concerns were raised about the hostile environment in which Ghanaian journalists find themselves. What do you think has attributed to this?
What I think is largely due to the culture of impunity and people not held to account for the crimes they perpetrate against journalists. I mean, a clear case in point is the Ahmed Swale incident. Remember, there was also an incident involving a pregnant journalist who works for the Ghanaian Times who was assaulted by the police. Latif of Multimedia is also still nursing his wounds, and a whole lot of other cases. The question is, these officers who perpetrated these crimes, what has been done about it? Has justice been served? Aside that, I mean, other persons who are not necessarily agents of the government, but just the average, civilians, have also, in many cases, attacked journalists, especially during political activities. And nobody is mostly, I think over 90% of it goes without any form of punishment meted out to the perpetrator. And I think largely that is what is accounting for this. And I think the government also needs to do more to protect journalists. Unfortunately, even though we have institutions such as SHRAJ, such as the Police Intelligence and Professional Bureau and the rest, I don't think they have done enough to protect journalists. Unfortunately, GJA has become more or less a statement issuing organization. I mean, issuing statements
whenever journalists are attacked. But the question is, what has the GJA done to address the issue? Do they represent journalists? Does the GJA provide resources when an issue involving a journalist is in court and all that? Do they push for justice to be served beyond the statements, the issues? I mean, all of these are legitimate questions that I think should be answered in our quest to ensuring that journalists are safe.
But talking about measures put in place by the GJA, recently they introduced a system of blacking out persons who attack journalists. Are they not at least making efforts?
Well, it is an effort, but it's woefully not enough. Blacking out is nothing. I mean, you've done nothing. Rather, they should. I mean, Ghana is a country that is governed by the rule of law. We are not a jungle or banana republic, okay? I think the GJA should go a step further to ensuring that justice is served, even if it has to use its own resources in a court to get these perpetrators punished. I'm a member of the GJA. I pay my dues. And so this is personal to me. I mean, beyond the security analysis, I'm a journalist myself. And I do know how hard it has become for journalists to operate, even in a free country such as Ghana. No wonder we've been having an inconsistent position within the press freedom ranking, and I think that is unfortunate. I feel we can do better.
Adib, now, this is clearly an election year. Journalists are susceptible to attacks from persons in authority for one reason or the other. What can journalists themselves do if you think that the institutions are not well ready enough to help journalists protect themselves? What can they themselves do to protect themselves?
Before the last election in 2020, my center, the Jatke Center for Human Security and Peace Building, moved from one media house to another, training them on how to keep themselves safe when covering election activities. And it was very educative because we went to a number of media houses. For example, if you are at a polling station and there's an active shooter situation, what do you do? Do you run? Do you lay on the ground? What do you do? When you meet a crowd that is becoming very violent, what do you do under such circumstances? And a whole lot of other strict protocols that needs to be strictly adhered to. But because of the lack of information, some journalists get themselves into needless danger because they are unable to decipher that this situation is getting out of control. So I think the training bit is important, and I pray that media owners would look beyond the profits and commit to ensuring that their journalists are well trained so they are able to do their work in a much more safer environment.
Adib, thank you so much. Adib Sani is a security analyst. Away from security, let's do health now. And 5.8 million Ghanaians are at a risk of contracting onchocerciasis, also known as river blindness, whilst a total of 440,000 people are likely to be infected with lymphatic filariasis, also known as elephantiasis. Now, in an effort to eliminate this by 2030, the Ghana Health Service will, from Monday, July 15, commence a mass drug administration in 77 onchocerciasis endemic districts in the country.
The 2-week event, which ends on 26th July, seeks to reach 5.8 million people who are at risk of river blindness with treatment, as well as 440,000 people who are at risk of lymphatic filariasis. The administration of the drugs will be done from age 5 and above, with the exception of pregnant women in 15 regions. Lymphatic filariasis or elephantiasis is endemic in 116 districts in Ghana, and currently the transmission of the infection has been interrupted in 109 districts.
The main strategy for this control and elimination of lymphatic filariasis includes, as I said earlier, stopping the spread of the infection through a large-scale annual treatment of all eligible people in an area or region where infection is present, and alleviating the suffering caused by the lymphatic filariasis through the provision of recommended essential package of care.
In Ghana, 140 districts are endemic for onchocerciasis. Although considerable progress has been made in the control of the disease, there is still an enormous task ahead to achieve the global targets of elimination by 2030. Hence, the Ghana Health Service is using the annual mass drug administration, which is community-directed treatment with ivermectin strategy.
We have the challenge in the country that there are NTDs or neglected tropical diseases in the country that are endemic in a number of the districts. And some of them, particularly for onchocerciasis and lymphatic filariasis, we've been doing this annual MDAs, whereby we give tablets to persons in several communities. The idea is that we need to be able to sell the message for people to buy into it. We need to appreciate why we need to do it. So we normally have these annual meetings to make sure that the community or the population is aware of what it is. So this year is, I would say, is the beginning of a cycle that are going to start. And we think that the Ghanaian will get to know of it where the media is fully much involved. You've helped us in the past, and we think that this year will also help us to achieve it. There's a lot of competing interests in the country. Politics, sports, but we think that health is also premium. And we want you to use this forum to let the Ghanaian appreciate that health is well. And so that we know how best they can appreciate it. It's not easy to take medicines, but when you know the importance of it, then you take it. So that's how come we invited you here today, to help us as partners in the fight to address NTDs. There have been a lot of successes in the fight against NTDs. And we think that we can win the fight against onchocerciasis and lymphatic filariasis. So you are welcome once again to our conference room on behalf of the Director General.
The 2-week event will start from 15th July to 26th July 2024 through its neglected tropical disease program.
Now, the Awen municipality in the Western North region is grappling with several neglected tropical diseases. The area has been declared endemic for yaws, lymphatic filariasis, onchocerciasis, and soil-transmitted ailments. Peter Carl Adato has an exclusive interview with the Municipal Director of Health to get a detailed understanding of the challenges and the ongoing efforts to combat these diseases. There are more details in this report. The Awen Municipal District in Ghana is currently facing a significant health challenge. This region is endemic to several neglected tropical diseases, NTDs, including yaws, lymphatic filariasis, onchocerciasis, and soil-transmitted ailments. Local health officials are working tirelessly to combat these diseases through various interventions.
The Awen municipal is endemic for NTDs. Yeah, so we have the interventions such as the mass drug administrations we do for onco. But for the yaws, we do case search. And those that come out positive, we put them on treatment.
Joseph Asigri further provided recent statistics to highlight the prevalence of these diseases.
So for this year, January to May, we have recorded 194 confirmed cases of yaws. And there are still more out there in the communities. If we do more tests, we'll get more children who have the condition. And for lymphatic filariasis, we have had 35 for January to May.
Yours thrives in areas with poor sanitation and hygiene and common in deprived areas where access to potable water is limited. Onchocerciasis, on the other hand, is transmitted by mosquitoes in riverine areas, whereas soil-transmitted helminths or worms are contracted through contact with contaminated soil.
If you look at the interventions, they are targeted towards those areas where there's poor access to water. We try to get them clean water, provide them with sanitation facilities.
Organizations like RECFAM and ANISVAD are helping by providing water and sanitation facilities and offering livelihood empowerment programs for those affected by lymphatic filariasis.
Well, looking at what we have seen on the field and the work we are doing, it's not possible for Ghana to, to achieve that. And then the WHO also say that by 2030, they should eradicate NTDs from the whole world. But given the fact that there's this superstitious belief behind it, we don't see how feasible that is going to be.
They are also setting up a community radio station for public sensitization.
Ghana Health Service, they've been doing their part and they have done so well. What needs to be done is, again, more awareness creation and to let people know that most of the disease, the NTDs, are treatable.
Despite these efforts, challenges still persist, particularly with community perceptions and adherence to health interventions.
So I think REFAM has really helped us with their project. And they also helped us in the case search. At least when they first came, we did a baseline data collection, we did some case search, and then some community treatments.
Beyond these NTDs, the Alwyn municipality faces other significant health issues.
The number one cause of OPD attendance. These days too, we have diarrheal diseases. Anemia is also prevalent, especially among our pregnant women. There's something that we are trying to understand. Most of the pregnant women are very anemic.
Efforts to combat these diseases are underway, but more support and community cooperation are needed to make a lasting impact. Tutuwaa Adato for GH1 News. Away from health, key stakeholders in the agricultural sector have reacted to the Ghana Statistical Service report on the performance of the agricultural sector in the 2023 multidimensional report, describing it as unsurprising and reflective of the country's neglect of agriculture. According to these stakeholders, the report serves as a significant indictment of Ghana's investment in agriculture and could deter the youth from pursuing careers in the sector. My colleague Rosemond Akoko-Wajite has the details.
According to the Ghana Statistical Service's multidimensional poverty report, households headed by individuals working in the agricultural sector recorded a poverty rate of 34.3%, making them poorer than those in the industry and service sectors. The report explains that the agricultural sector is more than 5.5 times poorer than the services sector and about 3.8 times worse off than the industry sector. Reacting to the report, the General Secretary of the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Caraway, told GH1 News that the report is a verdict on the failure of Ghana's policies and its inability to manage the economy, particularly agriculture.
For the past 4 years, agricultural production has been so bad that food inflation has been dominating the national inflation, sometimes even up to 50% or more of national inflation. So the report coming from the Statistical Service, again, is a verdict of the failure of our policies and then our inability to manage our economy.
The Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Bismarck Norte, said the report sheds a grim light on the future of agriculture, indicating that the sector will not be attractive to the youth due to the high cost of production and investment. He also predicted that the figures in the next report from the Statistical Service will be worse.
The issue of agricultural infrastructure is key, and it's important that we have the right investment in that. Let's invest in irrigation. It will get a lot of people to readily go into agriculture. Let's invest in the production systems. How do we ensure that the cost of agricultural inputs are low? because currently farmers cannot afford to purchase the cost of inputs. Currently, if you even compare from 2021 to now, the average cost of production have increased by more than 600%.
The stakeholders urge the government to prioritise agriculture by addressing the issues affecting the growth in order to alleviate poverty among farmers in the country.
Away from that, the North Tongue MP Samuel Tutuwaa is demanding the publication of the assessment supposedly done by the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, which granted SSNIT clearance for the sale of 60% of its stake in 4 hotels to Rock City Hotel, while the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafo-Iwa, answering questions on the floor of Parliament, revealed after an assessment, the NPRA, which earlier had directed SSNIT to suspend its negotiations with Rock City Hotel over the sale of 4 hotels in all due processes, have been complied with.
The 2-week event, which ends on 26th July,
NPRA came up with a directive, but I will appreciate if my brother, my colleague, really read the directive from NPRA. It said it needed to be furnished with all information relating to the sale of the hotels, which SSNIT has since done that. So it wasn't like a direct decision that SSNIT should not go ahead to do anything. But then SSNIT can only go ahead when NPRA, which is the regulator within the field, had actually certified that they had seen all the documentation and the processes and they think that they are good to go. Well,
Honorable, please conclude your answer.
Yes. So, as a minister, I can tell you on authority that NPRA has since indicated that they had seen the processes and they think that SSNIT can go ahead.
But Samuel Tutuwaa says the minister is taking Ghanaians for granted. Speaking exclusively to Starr FM, Samuel Tutuwaa is demanding the publication of the assessment supposedly done by the National Pensions Regulatory Authority.
The Minister for Employment and Labour Relations is clearly taking the Ghanaian people for granted, and he is underestimating our anger. How can the minister tell us that the NPRA has given SSNIT the green light when, as we speak, the transaction advisor, Sem Capital, led by Dr. Sam Mensah, has issued a damning verdict on this transaction? What kind of review has the NPRA done? When the transaction advisor, remember we paid good money to the transaction advisor, $491,000, over 7 million Ghana cedis. If they won't listen to the transaction advisor, why are we spending so much money to obtain this advice from the transaction advisor? The transaction advisor is telling us that after reviewing this deal, they find that Rock City has been made an offer which other bidders did not have. Rock City has been allowed to pay half and then spread the half over a 24-month period. An insider dealing, clear bias, clear discrimination. Other bidders didn't have that. The SSNIT pre-qualification criteria is that bidders should have a bank guarantee. Rock City doesn't have a bank guarantee. Rock City, according to the transaction advisor, doesn't have the source of funding. So what kind of green light is the NPRA giving? Clearly, these are government officials determined to sell these hotels, including profitable hotels, to their colleague in government. We are not going to accept this. And I want to serve notice that we are going to engage in nationwide demonstrations. We are going to collaborate with organized labor. There will be a grand resistance. There will be strikes. There will be demonstrations all over our country. And we are not going to allow this blatant, nauseating insider dealing to continue. I mean, Look, we challenge the MPRA to publish the outcome of their review. If they are proud of what they have done, if their review is superior to what the transaction advisor has done, if they know they have engaged in legitimate, transparent work, they should publish the review that they have done, subjected to public scrutiny, and let us see that indeed this transaction is above board. They cannot do it because they know they are engaged in insider dealing. We are going to stage the biggest demonstration on this matter across the country. The resistance will continue. We'll work with organized labor. There will be strikes. There is absolutely no way we are going to allow this obnoxious transaction to continue.
Well, the honorable member for North Tongue, Samuel Okujetua Blakwa there. Let's do sports now, and my colleague Benjamin Yamwa has joined me with the very latest in the sector. Benjamin, good evening.
Good evening to you, Tutuwaa. And in sports, now Ghana FA Cup champions in Swatreman FC have been drawn against TP Elexport of Chad in the first prelim round of the CAF Confederation Cup. In Swatreman and the sport to represent the country in the continent's second biggest club competition following their League Cup triumph, having narrowly defeated regional rival Bofokotano in the finals of the MTN FA Cup in Ghana. The first leg are scheduled for the weekends of September 13 and 15, while the return encounters will be held from September 20 and 22nd of this year. The winner of this tie will face the winner of the game between CS Constantine and Police FC in the second qualifying round in the Confederation Cup in Africa. Some tennis news now in Wimbledon, and Jasmine Paolini edged out Donna Vikic in a thrilling semi-final to become the first Italian to reach the Wimbledon women's singles final. Now, Paolini had never reached a second week of a Grand Slam until 6 weeks ago when she made a French Open final and remarkably had not won a main draw match at Wimbledon until this summer's tournament. Paolini's victory means she will now face that's 31st seed Barbora Krejcikova of Czech in Saturday's final for the women. Speaking after her victory, Paolini indicated that she will remember this victory for the rest of her life.
It was really tough today. She played unbelievable, I think. She was hitting winners everywhere, and yeah, I was a little bit struggling at the beginning, but I was just repeating to myself to fight to every ball and to try to, to improve a little bit on the court because I was serving really bad. But no, I'm so happy with this win. I think, I don't know, this match I will remember forever, I think.
And that's Paolini Jasmine after her win in the semi-final. So she takes on the other opponent, that's Barbora Krejcikova of Czech, who also defeated Elena Rybakina 3-6, 6-3, 6-4 this evening to reach her first Wimbledon final for the women's draw. And that's it for sports today.
Thank you so much, Benghazi. But yesterday, eggs were thrown in our faces.
Absolutely. After the English team managed to edge out the Dutch 2-1. Great game it turned out to be. I mean, the English surprised all of us with, for me, their performance. For once, they improved. For once, their coach got substitutions right. The players who came on, Ole Watkins and of course, the youngster got the goal to ensure that they won over the Dutch. So yes, kudos to the English fans. But on Sunday,
will be a determining factor.
Sunday we are with the Spanish. Ever until the game is
Absolutely.
over, we are behind the Spanish team. We cannot afford to have all the noise pollution of it's coming home, it's coming home.
We are tired already.
We are with the Spanish team on Sunday.
Right. Bengaji, thank you so much for those sports updates there. Well, that's it for this. That's it for this edition of Starr Today. My name is Tutuwaa Danso. For more news updates, log on starfm.com.gh.
for discerning listeners. Starr 103.5 FM.
Starr FM 103.5.
When I see the stars in the sky, I feel as though the heavens are calling. The way that they shine so bright, while the stars recite and they are never falling. It's the home of the stars.
You are tuned in to Starr FM.
When I see the stars in the sky, it's the home of the stars.
Starr FM 103.5.
This is the broadcast of the BBC's Focus in Africa on Starr FM.
Hello, I'm Audrey Brown, and today in Focus in Africa, we are discussing the thousands of ghost workers in the Nigerian civil service. How did they get there? And will a new plan to flush them out work?
Somebody whom a colleague of mine interviewed who is a ghost worker, he just laughed when the president said he was going to come down on the said ghost workers. There's hardly any jitter in any corner of people thinking, oh, this would be any different from previous threats by the sitting government of those days.
That sounds like a no then. Also, how does Impose taste?
I don't know what you are eating where you are.
Not insects and not caterpillars. And I think I haven't eaten an ant since I was about 7. Is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it bitter?
It's very good to eat.
We're discussing a cuisine that involves insects, something the Congolese scientist we're talking to is calling the food of the future. It's Thursday, the 11th of July. First, we go to Sudan. Because the war there is never far from the headlines, whether it's the suddenness of the outbreak, the viciousness of its execution, or the seeming futility of sporadic peace talks to try and end the fighting between the official army and a wing of the armed forces that broke away and challenged it for control of the country. Underlying all of those topics is the severity of the impact on the people. Millions have fled their homes, thousands are targeted or caught in the crossfire. And at least
the smaller parties could not get 1%. Correct. They were getting 0.101, like